Hello, welcome back to Chapter 9. This is the Banquet. If you remember last time on Chapter 8, we were dealing with the aftermath of the drinking the poison, and so Jason now has a much denser matrix, and we found out on the last chapter that Sandy had been in touch with John, gone into the earth, and Sandy was starting to feel very much like her old self again. So she had really powered up and leveled up as well. So that will come into play much later, but still exciting. So at the end of the last chapter, CL had given both Sandy and Jason new outfits for the banquet tonight. And so we're just going to cover that super fast because it kind of ties into the banquet. So basically, Jason is wearing a sapphire blue suit with emerald green like stripes and not stripes, what do you call it, like little piping on it, and he's also wearing an emerald green suit with an emerald green socks and emerald green shoes. And what really kind of makes it all work is the fact that the suit itself is such a nice beautiful dark blue, and then all the pops of one color, and it's coming out. And then on Sandy's side, she's wearing a dress that is shades of gray, which is very similar to John's magic, but as she moves and it shimmers, then the alternate color that's coming out is her oranges. It's like her fire coming out, and so she's looking all beautiful and feeling all special. All right, so we're ready to begin Chapter 9, Banquet. As we got closer to our destination, I started noticing all the outfits the other mages were wearing. Their designers had walked right up to the edge of clothes versus costume and just kept right on going. Once we made it to the main ballroom, I felt like I was on the set of a romantic fantasy movie. Sandy's dress only hinted at flames, while one guy looked like he actually wore flames. Another woman had a 3-foot-tall weave on her head with butterflies fluttering around it. It was crazy and wonderful, and I didn't know who to look at first. The ballroom itself was gorgeous. It felt like a ballroom at a French chateau, with classically painted scenes on the ceiling and thick columns with arches on the sides. Sparkly crystal chandeliers hung every few yards, and the light danced off the polished marble floor. Sandy had taken my arm like she was a lady out for a stroll with her man. It fit the moment, but we really did it so we wouldn't get separated by the crowd. We moved out of the way of the entrance, spending a few minutes just standing there gawking at everything. I felt like a country bumpkin going to the big city for the first time. This event was opulent with a capital O. In contrast to the rest of the scene, the tables were rather plain. They were long, running the entire width of the floor, and covered in a simple white tablecloth. The chairs were also simple, sturdy white stools with a cushion for padding. That seemed really out of place until I saw somebody sit down at their table. When they did, their chair morphed into a shape that was comfortable and yet didn't disturb their outfit. That made a lot more sense because some of these outfits were elaborate and definitely wouldn't work with a regular high-back chair. I was just starting to feel relaxed in these surroundings when the lights dimmed and everyone took that as a signal to find their seat and settle down. Sandy seemed to know where we were going as we walked past several tables and then steered me down an aisle. I was used to most restaurants where the tables usually sat close together, but there was plenty of room for us to walk down to find our seats, so we strolled side by side until Sandy stopped. We stood at the center of one of the middle tables, our places marked by escort cards. Mine had an ink drawing in the front of our house with my name spelled out in fancy calligraphy. It was beautiful, so I picked it up and put it in my pocket as a keepsake. This was an evening I wanted to remember. I sat on my white stool and felt it change as it transformed into a very comfortable high-backed chair. It was a bit of a weird feeling to have the seat under me change its form, but it was kind of cool too. I now sat on a chair with lots of padding, and the posture of the back seat wasn't too aggressive. I could lean back a little, and best of all, it had armrests. I love a chair with armrests, but they're usually a bit too high for me. These armrests were perfect, and I sighed in contentment. We hadn't had any food yet, and already the night was turning out very well. Sandy's chair had armrests too, and was a bit more upright than mine, but it looked like it fit her as well. Her chair even changed color, so the main part of the chair looked like stone, but the armrest had the orange and red of flames. It complemented her dress perfectly. I was going to comment on how amazing she looked when my chair shimmered and changed colors also. The plain white of the chair was now a velvet sapphire blue, with sparkling emeralds accenting the main lines. It matched my suit perfectly, and my gay heart gave a happy squeak. Just when I thought things couldn't get better, Balaji showed up and took the seat beside me. He was going to be my right-hand companion for the evening. I was so excited I jumped up and gave him a big hug. I turned to tell Sandy and realized she was hugging Amaya, who was going to be sitting on her left. This was just perfect. The cynical side of me realized they were both there to take care of us and make sure nothing bad happened again. I knew they had their own friends in their own house and they could have sat with, but selfishly I was very glad that they were there. The cynical side of me realized they were both there to take care of us and make sure nothing bad happened again. I knew they had their own friends in their own house they could have sat with, but selfishly I was very glad they were there with us. I'd been a little apprehensive about making conversation with a bunch of strangers, but now I had a friendly face on either side of me. I could relax even more. The house lights dimmed a bit, and a spot on the table in front of me started glowing. Everyone quieted down as the spot began to spark, and I looked around to see the same thing was happening every 6 feet or so along the table. The sparks grew higher and higher, almost 3 foot in the air, before the image of a beautiful lady walked out of them. She was about 1 foot tall and made of soft yellow light. Her dress would look at home on the red carpet of the Oscars, but it was pretty tame for this event. She bowed slightly as the fountain of sparks faded behind her. "Greetings, good friends," she says. "I am Jamila, House Grand Matron and your host for the evening. I welcome you to the gathering in tonight's banquet. Chef Raoul Gouldy has prepared a procession of tasty morsels that will delight your senses and inspire your imagination. You are in for a real treat tonight. I trust you've already settled into your combinations and enjoyed your first day of discussions. So tonight is the best time to truly relax and settle into this learning adventure. I will be back later to inform you of the other events we have upcoming, but until then, enjoy your culinary delights." She gave a wave and vanished. I really liked the way she'd appeared and given her little talk. Usually at these sort of things there's a podium and a speaker, which means everyone has to look around someone else or crane their neck to see who's talking. By projecting to the middle of the tables, everyone could see her. She had also been talking in different languages. Our projection was in English, of course, but I could hear totally different words coming from the table behind me. I couldn't imagine what it would take to create all these projections speaking in different languages, but the result was totally worth it. For a while all was quiet, and then I heard the sounds of rhythmic clomping. I looked to the end of the table to see a whole crew of centaur llamas starting to prance their way down the aisles between the tables. They were dressed in tuxedo waiter outfits for their human halves and held trays laden with spoons. Their upper bodies were steady, like they were floating through the air, while their lower halves were stepping it out like an Irish dance troupe. The intricate rhythm made my heart race, and the sound was powerful enough to rock the place. They clopped their way down the aisle until they reached their assigned spaces, and then they stuck a pose. We all burst into applause at the power and precision of their routine. For a long moment they stayed frozen, enjoying the sounds of our appreciation, and then they relaxed and began their serving duties. They deftly plucked the little spoons off their trays, setting them in front of us. Everyone got one spoon, and on each spoon was only a little morsel of food. But oh, what a work of art that bite-sized morsel was. The spoon itself was interesting, with a flat bottom so the spoon could easily rest on the table, and the handle part had a high arch. The spoon started out with a bit of white sauce, and then it had something that looked like a scallop on it, but it was sculpted like a fairy tale castle and dusted with something that made it sparkle. The end result was a tiny fantasy castle surrounded by a moat. It was almost too pretty to eat. Almost. I ate the whole thing in one bite, and it was absolutely delicious. It was savory from the gravy, had a meaty texture from the scallop, and a bit of a crunch from whatever the castle was sprinkled with. It was a delightful first bite. As soon as I finished and put the spoon back down, it floated towards the center of the table, and then turned and started floating towards the end. We were all finished at about the same time, so it created an interesting river of spoons floating just above the table. I could see a centaur llama at the end, bussing all the finished spoons onto his tray. This was a great start to the banquet, but it wasn't very much food. I wanted more, a lot more. Hopefully there would be more substantial portions to come. I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder, and I looked up to see our smartly dressed waiter leading in for a quick word. "Young master," he said, "CL sends his greetings. I also wanted to let you know that we will keep a special eye on you and your food tonight to make sure all goes well. I hope you won't mind, but I've taken the liberty of substituting a few of your courses. They are tasty but extremely spicy, and I'm afraid you won't be able to handle them. As such, the kitchen is preparing alternate courses that are just as tasty and hopefully more appropriate to your liking." He smiled at me in a friendly way, showing off his square teeth. He seemed younger than the other centaur llamas I'd seen, but I was very glad he was keeping an eye out for me. An excellent waiter can take a good meal and make it a great one. I nodded and thanked him, and then he tapped Sandy on the shoulder and told her as well. I guess from his point of view, we were both young supernaturals and needed all the help we could get. The next course started without a lot of fanfare. I was chatting with Balaji when a hand reached around and deftly set a small soup bowl and spoon in front of me. This repeated all up and down the table, and as soon as everyone was ready, I heard the sounds of thunder. I looked to my right, down the table, to see a dark storm cloud coming towards us. It was moving swiftly, and as it passed me, a small dark cloud broke off and hovered over my soup bowl. A tiny shaft of lightning arched down and struck my spoon, followed by an equally tiny crack of thunder. Then it started raining in my bowl. As it rained, the cloud gradually thinned out and then drifted away. I was left with the white, creamy-looking soup in my bowl. I picked up the spoon, dipped it in the soup, and took a sip. Immediately, I was in heaven, as I enjoyed the earthy, rich taste and smooth texture. It was a mushroom soup, but oh, so delicious. Certainly the best I'd ever eaten. I found myself ladling it into my mouth at a rapid rate, so I forced myself to slow down and truly savor it. But even with my attempted restraint, it was gone way too soon. Damn, I wanted a gallon of the stuff. Skip that, I wanted a keg of it. I wanted to take it home and curl up with it on a rainy day while reading a book. I wanted to sip it gently while I was watching my trashy Netflix shows. If my heart was ever broken, I wanted to eat this instead of a gallon of ice cream. Okay, that last one was a little overboard, but you get the idea. This was the soup to end all mushroom soups. This was the creme de la creme, my pièce de résistance, my soul food. Somehow the soup spoke to me on a fundamental level and gave me a cosmic hug. As I came off my culinary high, I looked around discreetly. Had I been moaning in ecstasy? That would be so embarrassing. Was I the only one that felt this way? I looked over at Balaji and he seemed unfazed, but when I looked the other way at Sandy, she had a dreamy, faraway look in her eyes. It seemed I wasn't the only one that had been smitten. Once we were done, the bowls and spoons again floated towards the end of the table where they were collected by a centaur llama. Since we were going to have lots of courses, this seemed like a neat and efficient way of clearing the table. I felt completely relaxed in my chair, but I jumped a little when it suddenly started to move beneath me. I sat up straight and looked around in alarm, but other than Sandy, nobody else seemed surprised. I didn't move far, only about 6 spaces to the left, but it was enough that the people across from us were now completely different. I had said hi to our crosswise table mates before, and they'd been friendly, but they hadn't really been interested in talking to us. Our new table mates, on the other hand, were full of stories and very happy to engage us in conversation. It seemed like they were all from the same house, somewhere in Russia, and they kept us totally entertained with stories about all the shenanigans they got up to back home. Apparently there was a rather stern leader at their house that they really enjoyed pranking. It always seemed like she got the best of them, but they never stopped trying. The next course was a thick slice of homemade bread, generously coated in creamy butter. It was simple, rustic, and easily my favorite course of the night. This course also came with a glass of white wine. I tried to eat the bread slowly, but again I was finished before I knew it. Our next course was a single carrot, about 6 inches long, cooked al dente, and covered in a honey glaze. It was served with a carrot whiskey cocktail. I liked the drink more than the carrot, and when we were finished, the chairs shifted again. I wasn't so startled this time. The rest of the dinner continued like that. Every 2 courses, the chairs moved, so we were constantly meeting new and interesting people. What made it work so well was I was always with Sandy and Balaji. It was a lovely mix of the familiar and the new. The courses kept coming, bouncing all over the culinary spectrum. We had a beef medallion dusted with spices, followed by a half egg, still in the shell, with a runny center and a slice of toast to dip in it. Next we had a cracker topped with marmalade, and then a long lettuce-like leaf that I tore into strips and dipped in homemade salad dressing. I'm sure regular chefs would have had a fit about the meal progression, but it was all so different, and it made every course a surprise. I thought I would have gotten stuffed full, but my body was still recovering and it welcomed all the food. As I kept eating, it occurred to me that my metabolism must be through the roof. That's all right. People kept saying I was too skinny, so all this food was just what I needed. In addition to food, we had lots of different wine and beverage pairings. Most of them were alcoholic, including tequilas, whiskeys, ales, etc., but there was also a selection of other beverages like carbonated pear juice and blackcurrant juice. Some of the courses appeared in magical and wondrous ways, but most of them were served by our young centaur llama. He was so helpful and knowledgeable about the food and beverage, and I felt comfortable eating anything he recommended. There were several courses he substituted, and I was happy to go along with the changes. He kept the alcoholic beverages from being overwhelming and the food from being too intense. As the evening progressed, I settled into a warm, happy place. The conversation was sparkling and fun. The food was surprising and wonderful, and all the wine gave me a nice glow. Even my chair reflected the change, as it wrapped around me a little more, adding an extra layer of cushion. One of the nice things about this time was that I got to share it with Sandy. She really opened up and enjoyed herself immensely. She told stories about her early days in Chicago and some of her adventures with John. She was our head of house, and I looked up to her as a leader, but she was a wonderful person too, and it was nice to bond with her on such a personal level. Of course, all good things must come to an end, and the final course arrived with a foot-high image of our master chef walking down the center of our table throwing out gold and silver candies. It was a fun end to the perfect evening, and we all responded with cheers and thunderous applause. Our smartly dressed raiders clomped in again, doing their high-stepping rhythm, and we all clapped even harder. I wanted to tell our young centaur llama just how much I appreciated him, but before I knew it, he had bowed, waved at us, and then pranced away again. I thought our evening was over, and I wasn't ready to move yet, when the table started sparkling again. Once again, an image of the Grand Matron stepped out and waved at us. Wasn't that amazing? She waved towards the waiters and the chefs standing on the side. I'd only seen the master chef up to this point, but it made sense that he would have a whole team working with him. Let's give it up one more time to the creators of this fabulous meal. We clapped again, but it wasn't enough for her. Come on, people, let them know how you feel. They've been training for this for months, and tonight was spectacular. People started cheering and stomping their feet. Then the mages really got into it and let loose with their magic. We had fireworks and all manner of noisemakers. I threw together a couple of belchers real quick, and the whole dining room vibrated with all that light and sound. Now the evening was finished and the pressure was off. The chef's support staff started laughing and bowing and high-fiving each other. All the noise died down quickly when the Grand Matron started speaking again. Let's also remember to show our generosity to the waitstaff. Show our generosity for a job well done and tip your waitstaff, she called. My heart dropped. I didn't have any money. I left my wallet in the dresser back in the room. Balaji gave my arm a pat. Don't worry, he said. I got you. He put 4 small purple orbs on the table in front of him. Oh, these must be the magic pearls I'd been hearing about. I could see why they were called pearls, because they were small, about the size of a pea, and with a pearlescent exterior. Other than the color, they looked like pearls. Sandy tapped my other arm and I looked over at her. I'll take care of us, she said, putting 3 fire orange pearls on the table in front of her. They gently rolled towards the center of the table and then started traveling towards the end. Everyone was putting down pearls, and soon there was a small river of orbs flowing past me. It was fascinating seeing them all together like that. Most of the pearls were the same size, but there were some that were much smaller, about a quarter the regular size, and some were bigger. There was one that rolled past that was the size of a jawbreaker. I guess that person had really bonded with their waiter, or maybe they just wanted to show off. Either way, I'm sure the waiters appreciated the extra gratuity. I felt bad I didn't have anything to give. Even if I'd brought my wallet, it wouldn't have done me any good. This event was magical currency only. I needed to figure out how to get pearls at some point. At least Sandy and Balaji had covered me, so our waiter wouldn't leave empty-handed. I know I speak on behalf of all the staff when I thank you for your kindness and your generosity, the Grand Matron continued. This week is going to continue in grand style. While the most important part of your time here is to participate in the discussions and learn from your fellow housemates, we also have a fine selection of events in the evenings, which will allow you to make new friends and celebrate with old ones. The next event tomorrow night will be the dance. This has become a delightful tradition, and it's been a real joy for me to participate in this new frivolity. I must admit, it makes me feel young again, and I hope it does the same for you. That sounded like fun. I wasn't the world's greatest dancer, but I wasn't the worst either. Plus, I'd never danced in this improved body of mine. I'd learned a whole new level of rhythm from my martial arts training, so maybe I might actually be kind of good now. The tournament also starts tomorrow and runs through the rest of the gathering, she continued. I know many of you are fans of this event and look forward to either participating or cheering on your favorite contender. This year the prizes are even better. She paused, and several people at our table leaned forward, hanging on her every word. The prize for the first level, up to 100 years, has been increased to 15,000 pearls. I heard people gasp. I had no idea what it was last time, but this time was obviously a lot more. The prize for the top level, she continued, enjoying the anticipation, it was so quiet you could hear a pin drop, is 150,000 pearls, she declared. The place erupted in excitement. Is that a lot? I asked Balaji. Oh yes, he explained, that is a huge amount. The tournament has always been popular before, but it will be even more competitive now. The Grand Matron waited a few moments, then made calming motions with her hands. The rooms quickly quieted again, waiting to hear if there was more. In addition to the pearls, the winner of each category will also receive a custom weapon made by our very own weaponsmiths here in the house. The level and power of the weapon will be dependent on the tournament level of the winner. The crowd started buzzing again, but the Grand Matron kept going. We started including this addition at the previous gathering, and it seemed to be very popular. As you know, our housesmiths are some of the very best in the supernatural world, so this is nothing to sneeze at. I trust each of our warriors will compete well and fairly and strive to do their best. In addition to the tournament, we will also host a fair, which will be held on the Great Lawn. There are several non-house vendors that are participating, and I hear from my sources that they have brought some of their very best merchandise. In addition to outside sources, each house also has the opportunity to contribute a booth and sell their own wares. I trust you will support your fellow houses and hopefully find lots of treasure to purchase and take back home with you. On the 5th night of the gathering, we will have our concert. Lady E and company are back again. She was going to continue, but people had already burst out in applause, including Balaji. He was normally an even keel kind of guy, but now he seemed really excited. The Grand Matron just laughed. It seems like she needs no further introduction. Be there or miss out on something special. The following night is our talent show, and I know many of you have been preparing for this for months. It is always a real treat, and for me personally, this is my favorite event. I can't wait to be astonished and amazed at just how creative and talented you are. The final night, of course, is our Master Circle. It renews our faith, our power, and our hope. It unites us and binds us in the magic that is our birthright. It also fills the reservoirs of magic for the houses that need it, so attendance is mandatory. That will complete our gathering, and you are free to leave immediately or spend the night and travel home in the morning. Please let your room stewards know your plan so you can be assigned a time for departure. But enough about completion. The joy of life is in the journey, and we have only just begun. I hope the rest of your evening is full of adventure or peace and quiet, whichever suits you best. Thank you again for a wonderful banquet, and I'll be around for the rest of the week. When you see me, take the opportunity to approach and introduce yourself. I'd love to meet each and every one of you. Once again, have a wonderful evening and enjoy yourselves. And with that, she waved both hands all around, then her image faded out. The murmur of conversation picked up again, and the lights grew brighter. The banquet was over. I stayed in my chair for a few more moments, savoring the rosy feeling of contentment and happiness. The banquet had been marvelous, and I wasn't ready to let it go. All too soon, Sandy and Balaji shifted in their chairs and gave me the, "You ready?" look. I sighed and nodded. As we headed out, we discussed our plans. Amaya and Balaji were both still feeling frisky, so they were ready to head out to some parties and have a good time. Sandy said she wanted to chill for a while, but I was pretty sure she wanted to communicate with John through their rings again. Today had been a good day, but it had felt long, so I was ready to head back to our suite too. We said goodbye to our friends and started back. We took our time, enjoying the underwater theme on the wall as well as all the artwork on the side hallways. This really was a beautiful place. We talked about the different dishes we'd been served and which ones we liked best. I hadn't taken pictures, and we'd had so many courses, so I was sure I'd already forgotten a few. Going back over them again helped fix them all in my mind. I was really looking forward to telling Tyler and Annabeth all about our culinary adventure. Annabeth would be more interested in how the food was served and what it looked like, and Tyler would want to know how everything tasted. Sandy's favorite dish was a simple one, berries and cream. It had started when a vine grew out of the table and grew berries right in front of us. Then a cloud of cream had drifted down the table to settle on top of them. This course had occurred right after two heavier savory courses, and the light and fresh interlude had just been perfect. My favorite course was still the mushroom soup. The presentation had been creative, but it was the soup itself that was to die for. It had ruined me for all other soup. I had tasted the best, now everything else would be second class. When we got back to our rooms, CL was waiting for us. He looked like a butler, standing there in a spiffy-looking jacket with one hand resting behind his back and the other gesturing in greeting. CL! Sandy didn't stand on ceremony and instead gave him a gentle hug. He looked so dashing. He looks almost as good as me, I chimed in before giving him a hug of my own. CL looked a little flustered. I think he still wasn't used to his guests being as comfortable and personal with him. He'd learned, though. Annabeth had taught me that a hug was good for all occasions, and she was the happiest person I knew. Thank you both very much, he said demurely. You are too kind. He snapped back into service mode. Now I'm sure you have both had a long evening and would like a little rest and relaxation. We both nodded. Master Sandy, I will help you with your dress first, and then I will be over shortly to help you, young master. Sandy and I exchanged an amused glance. I'm thinking that since our normal clothes were so comfortable and basic, CL didn't trust us to handle our new custom-made clothes. And maybe he was right. I'd never had a suit of this quality before. It probably was a good idea if it was taken care of by a professional. He offered Sandy his arm and they swept off in grand style to her bedroom. I decided it was time to check in on my furball and see how he was doing. It turned out he was doing just fine. Actually, he was doing better than fine. He was laid up in the pillows, all stretched out and comfy to the max. When I came in, he batted his sleepy eyes at me, gave a big yawn, and then rolled over to offer his belly for some rubbing. And that is what I did. I rubbed his tummy just the way he liked it and got his motor purring. Then I got all up in his grill and kissed him. He looked all, "Daddy, what are you doing?" So I kissed him again. He held my face between his two paws and kissed me back. I called him a shaggy diggy woogie poogie baby boy, and he stretched and agreed with me. My baby was the best. No matter what my adventures were, it was so nice to come back and hang out with my black and white kitty. Before things got too mushy, I heard a gentle knock on the door and CL stepped inside. I see you are enjoying your furry guardian, CL said with a smile. I also see he's blessing you with some hair to complement your custom-made outfit. Oh, that's right. I still had my fancy suit on. I jumped up and let CL help me out of it. He hung everything on one of those big thick hangers with velvet-covered crossbar. Nothing was too good for my new suit. He then dusted it down with his feather C250, and all the cat hair and wrinkles vanished. When he was done, it looked like I'd never worn it at all. His feather wand was amazing, and I wanted one. Since I'd already done the fancy outfit thing and wasn't planning on going out again, I decided to go extra comfy and put on some sweatpants and a t-shirt. Once dressed, I kind of felt in a weird space. On one hand, I was in for the evening, and on the other hand, I really wasn't that tired. I didn't have my phone, so I couldn't play Sudoku, and there wasn't a TV to watch my shows, so what was I going to do? That's when it occurred to me that CL was still standing there. He was trying to look all butler-like, but he was shifting back and forth slightly. It was like he wanted to say something, but didn't know how to start. Is everything okay? I asked. Well, young master, there is something I was hoping to bring up with you. Sure, I replied. What's up? He shuffled a bit more, looking even more nervous. This was a very different CL from the confident assistant he'd projected earlier. I just looked open and encouraging, giving him time to get to the point. I was hoping you could heal my niece, he blurted out. You've already done so much for me and already spent so much of your magic and talent that I feel unworthy to ask for more. But she is my niece. He gave me a pleading look. She's the only family I have left, and she could really use your help. Of course, CL, I said. I'm grateful for the wonderful clothes she made for us, and I'm happy to help her however I can. Regardless of the clothes, I'd be happy to help just because she's special to you. Thank you, he said sincerely. He paused. There is more to this than just healing her like you did me. I don't know that your spell is going to work with her. I gave him a puzzled look. With me, I've been healthy and normal before, and you just needed to get me back to that state again. With her, it's different. She's been crippled ever since she was a tiny Sriya. Her legs never grew incorrectly. She can get around. Oh, boo-boo. Oh. But it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and tires her out quickly. What I'm afraid of is that you will spend all your magic trying to heal her, but her body won't know how to grow back correctly. I hear what you're saying, I said thoughtfully. I agree with you. It is different, and I'm not sure if this will work or not. I can only try. Make sure my thing's on. And I'm certainly willing to do that. Thank you, CL nodded. There is one other thing. She can't travel the paths to come here. You will need to go to her. Okay, I shrugged. I wasn't feeling that tired anyway. As long as I can wear what I have on, I'm ready to go now. This was shaping up to be an adventure. I was excited to see what my healing talents could do. What you are wearing is fine, CL said. In fact, it might be the perfect outfit. He paused, looking nervous again. There is just one more thing. I laughed. How many one more things are there going to be? Just say what you need to. We'll work it out. He sighed. You have to understand, my people were originally warriors. We fought fiercely in our home realm long ago. We were respected and nobody messed with our tribes or our territory. Our realm was created naturally, and it was populated with all the flora and fauna that was natural to Earth at that time. Then one day, a powerful mage entered the realm and claimed it as his own. We fought him, and it did not go well. He stripped us of our natural magic, banishing us from our home. We came to Earth, but it was very different from our realm. It seemed like everything we touched was poisonous, and what we ate made us sick. Many died, and we'd given up all hope of survival as a species when we found the house. My ancestors made a deal. We would support the house in every way we could in exchange for a safe place to live and grow as a people. I nodded to let him know I was listening. All this was fascinating, but it still didn't tell me what this one more thing was. We settled into the house and prospered. We had food, a safe place to live, and a safe place to raise our young. However, some of our ancestors felt that we had now become just servants and housekeepers. The house had shields and mages to protect itself. Our warriors were not needed to fight. We are a proud and strong people, but how do we show that when we are dusting furniture and serving food? He gestured with his feather C-250. I knew CL took a lot of pride in his work, and I thought his feather wand was awesome, but I could see it wasn't exactly a warrior's weapon. Our ancestors compromised again and came up with an internal code of conduct. We would do good work and be proud of our work externally. In our own living space, though, we would honor our tribal roots. That tradition has been handed down generation to generation, and it is still strong with us today. I could see where this is headed. So I guess I'm going to your place to see your niece, and I'm going to have to go through some sort of tribal ritual? He nodded. So what do I have to do? Get my head shaved? Have a tribal mud bath? CL looked a little surprised, so I decided to have a little fun with him. Have sex with the chief's son? Get my nipples pierced? Oh, no, nothing like that. He looked at me again like, you have some weird ideas for a human. You just have to fight. I have to fight? He nodded. It's mostly ceremonial. It shows you are strong and worthy to enter into our home. You will be a strong partner for trading. You will be a strong father for our children if you stay. You will inspire us to be strong also. He said this almost like it was a ritual phrase. I hoped it was. I didn't have anything to trade with, and I had no desire to father little furry children. You say it's mostly ceremonial, I said. When is it more than that? Some of our guards are a bit more enthusiastic than others, he sighed. The other thing is you are coming into our tribe to see a cripple. Our tribe takes good care of her, but it is also seen as a sign of weakness. You are coming into our space to see someone who is not strong in the warrior sense. Plus, you are a mage. Because of that, I could see the guard testing you harder than normal. I can fight, I told him confidently. I can't fight as good as I can heal, but I have fought for my life before, and I'm still alive today. You've told me what to expect and why, so I'm going to be prepared. Don't worry, I won't let you down. This was going to be an even bigger adventure than I'd thought. I hadn't fought since my battle with Big Ugly and his crew. I'd used my magic, so I knew it was stronger and much denser than before. Now it was time to test my physical side. I rolled my shoulders and stepped into my pigeon stance. It felt familiar and easy. I summoned the smooth power of water, and Pigeon stepped forward and backward. Then I summoned the smoky power for my arms and shoulders. Lightning punch, lightning punch. Wow, that felt good. It felt like I hadn't paused my training at all. If anything, now my magic was denser, it felt faster. I stepped back into my regular stance and nodded at CL. I'm ready. Let's do this. And thus ends chapter 9, and the next chapter is going to be very exciting. So I'm really looking forward to reading it to you. So enjoy your week. See you next weekend.